I learned how to use it with Deb.
The Western culture and values that brought forth Christianity in the founding documents are being called evil and racist.
I'm reminded of the tyranny of communist China, where your money is legally stolen and then used in government schools, not public schools. These are not public schools, these are government schools, like here, to indoctrinate children against their parents.
My child is not oppressed, and don't assume that. As long as you Marxists push your unconstitutional agenda on my child, she will not be returning back to Loudoun County schools.
Yep, a heated scene. I don't need to tell you if you watch that playing out in Loudoun County, Virginia, where hundreds of parents push back against the school board over the district's transgender policy and other things. The district has also been the epicenter of the fight against critical race theory in the classroom. Look at this. Here to react to a panel of Loudoun County parents, conservative radio host Joe Mobley's here, along with Paul Chen and Rachel Pisani. Rachel, let's start with you. What was the goal going in? What ended up happening that cut everything off yesterday?
You know, the goal was really parents being able to speak and express their concern about CRT and the fact that our school board wants to indoctrinate our children. We do not want to co-parent with our government. We want to be able to instill beliefs and instill our faith in our children without hesitation.
Joe, do you think you're being heard? And the fact that they cut this off, does it make you feel as though they're trying to cut you off?
Absolutely, we're not heard. If anything, last night proved that this school board, and in particular Brenda Sheridan, have a real problem with the First Amendment, all the way from religious expression, freedom of conscience, to freedom of speech and expression. I think that's clear by last night.
So is your goal to win over the Board of Education or to replace them? And I'll bring that to you, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. The goal has been started about 7 or 8 weeks ago, and we are trying to recall the school board. 6 members out of 8 or 9 members we're trying to recall, because if we don't, these radical policies will not change.
So, yeah, well, are you worried about the fall? I mean, you're worried about what's going to happen in the fall, right? Because obviously this year is come and gone. And I'll put that to you, Rachel. Do you think that this message has gotten across where you actually will change the curriculum, or else the parent protest won't stop?
The parent protest won't stop. I mean, we are an army of moms and parents that will not stop until we're heard. So they can mute our mics, they can arrest us, they can kick us off of public property. We're not going to stop. They're passing laws saying in July 1st, after this, in the fall, they will fire any teacher that is not culturally in agreement with the school board and their tactics. This is insanity in America. This isn't freedom of speech. Right. It's not freedom of religion. It's racism, and it's cloaked in socialism.
So, Joe, I think it's important for people at home to understand, you're not saying don't teach Jim Crow, don't talk about the Civil War, don't talk about segregation. You're not talking about avoiding that, right, Joe? You're just talking about not indoctrinating and vilifying a race. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Teach history in its full context, and you can even speak to the impact of historical accuracy, but don't teach indoctrination. Don't teach that some kids are bad because of immutable characteristics, namely their skin color.
Paul, I've been pretty much in awe of what's happening at the...
So that was a year ago, you guys. 1 year ago. It's hard to believe it. So, Ann, you are one of those parents that Joe Mobley was talking about that was at the school board meeting constantly demanding better education for your children and others. What was that like? First of all, welcome. But what was that like?
Hi.
I mean, constantly being in the public eye, and I mean, all eyes was on Virginia last year. What was that like?
Even we're not far. I'm in Chesterfield County, which is Central Virginia, and yeah, that was not long ago. But it's very different than Loudoun. We have 60,000 children and about 5 parents that show up. We flipped this county red. And it's a different story. We go support Hanover a lot because they've been fighting the transgender. Like full force. That's what their school board meetings, and they have probably a quarter of the amount of students. I live in a county where they don't want it. The teachers are leaving. They're just mass exodus. Like, and yeah, my kids will never ever go through this again, but they will be, as long as my tax dollars pay for it, they will hear my mouth. And they have come to, when I say loathe me, because I know their policies better than they do. I go in front, I just sent you a video if you want to share it about truth. Like, I told my all white school board member, if they, all 5 white, if they're white, if you want to continue to push equity on my children, then under the name of equity, all 5 of you should step down by the next school board meeting. People look at me like, and I'm like, they're not going to send me to the principal's office. They tried to mask us, but I know, but it's frustrating because they're just leaving. They're not fight, but up there, it's maddening to find out now that they're pushing back people, that they broke the law. The fact that they haven't come in, that we know they hit a rape and another rape happened.
So we're going to talk. Yeah, we're going to talk about that because there's so much to unpack here tonight. So we're going to talk about we're border states. We've got North Carolina. And I always tell people, look, we can be, in terms of electoral repercussions, victories, also, we can either be Virginia or we could be Georgia. If you recall, Georgia in 2021 to be specific, in January, the voters were fed up with the GOP. They felt lied to. They were. They felt as though they weren't taken care of. They weren't. And they felt like they're being used for their vote and their vote didn't count, and it didn't. Or we can be Virginia. For better, for worse, and we'll talk about this later, for better, for worse, the GOP decided early on, maybe a year, before the election, that they were going to wrap their arms around your movement and say, okay, the parents' fight is our fight. The GOP here has been a menace to us. They have constantly tried to take me personally down. And they have taken, trying to bankrupt our group. Actually, one of the guys who went to plan of the organization for the GOP, they have been hostile at best. And the reason is because we have dared to criticize the superintendent who calls herself a Republican, who's been pushing this transgender stuff. So here's what I'm going to talk about. Here's how I'm going to lay it out. There are many reasons why Virginia and North Carolina share in its wokeness. The one we're going to focus on tonight will be a state level cause. So the state level cause, we can talk about federal funding. We're not going to talk about that tonight.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is talk about my state and your state's over reliance on third party think tanks, specifically the Hunt Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Third party think tanks have brought us Common Core. It has brought us CRT. It has brought us a variety of things. Now it's brought us social emotional learning. We tonight are going to talk about the Hunt Institute. 20 years ago, the Hunt Institute, based here in North Carolina, but it's all over, as you and I are going to talk about. They fancy themselves as a bipartisan group, and I'll talk a little bit about why they do that. Mm-hmm. This group was the propaganda arm of the nation to not only sell Common Core, but to sell it and to give talking points, even when Common Core was failing Black and brown students in particular. Common Core was and is a complete menace. Because of the Hunt Institute, it was kept alive to the point where, you had a mass failing of students. Here's why this is important. Now, social emotional learning is being sold to us. It's being crammed down upon us by the Hunt Institute. In particular, there are others. But the Hunt Institute, you're going to tell us who funds it in a second. But before we get to that, I'm going to tell everybody what social emotional learning is. It sounds great, right? It is another educational fad like Common Core, where it's pushed from the top down. Not legal for the feds to push down something from the top down, but that's why they lie about it. Okay. So social emotional learning, it's the vehicle by which transgender grooming happens. Okay. So long time ago, Anne, we stopped talking, completely stopped talking about CRT.
Yeah.
And the reason and maybe a year ago, The reason is it's coming in through social emotional learning. That's number one. But number two, the most dangerous educational program in my lifetime, probably ever in this country, is social emotional learning, because specifically it seeks to damage the number one institution, human institution in the country, and that is the family. That is the purpose. Okay. So I've shown
and it's so pretty.
It can be.
It's hard to, when you see those cute little cartoons and the way they sell it, like, it's hard to fight a dressed up trash can, as I call it. Like, and that's what
this is an example. So, I mean, this is a Charlotte lesson. I've shown, by the way, guys, I've shown lessons to you guys from every county. You know why? Because it's mandated in the state of North Carolina. It is in all 12 academic subjects, meaning you can't get out of it. Okay.
Same in Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're the same in that. And it relies on prying copious amounts of data from your child. More on that in a second. So this is a lesson. This is all the shit, really. There's no other way to say it, that kids have to learn. They have to learn this because, and if they don't, it is a microaggression. Okay. So that's what these are. 7th graders, by the way, if you wanted to know, 7th graders have to learn that. They're also learning this. Now, if you've been watching us, you understand that what you're looking at is a variation on the theme. The gender unicorn, the gingerbread person that was taught in kindergarten in Moore County and other places. It's a variation on the theme. Do you see that grooming is on the menu? Some people don't feel they fit in their body, but somewhere outside a continuum, they are encouraging transgenderism or no gender. Now, I want to show you something, and this is important, Ann, because this is I found this on the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction website, but this is also on the Virginia Department of Public Education website. Okay. This is right off the website. This is responsible decision-making and belonging. Again, they're teaching this in all 12 academic subjects. It is required. Okay. In math, imagine this in math or science or reading or whatever. Okay. Considering diversity, salience, and climate. Addressing the impact of beliefs and biases. Guess whose beliefs and biases? White Christian males, I would guess.
Yes. First targeted. The teachers here that were pushed out earlier this year were the 30-year educators that were devoted to, they didn't care, but they are principle driven humans, and they knew it was wrong. And once they started speaking out about it, they were in an office and had on administrative leave and told, you can take partial retirement and be out, and they left. And
we have a lot of teachers. In fact, we've got 2 board members of our organization that left. One of them because of this, because she was hammered with training week after week after week. It is insulting for good teachers to be treated like this, by the way. That's why we're losing so many teachers. Pursuing inclusive, mutually beneficial solutions. We're not a collective here. We are based on individual liberties. Thank you very much. And remember, when you pursue collectives, mutually beneficial solutions, you are teaching children to give up their civil liberties.
Yep.
That is what you are doing. That is what you're doing. Reflecting on the broader ethical consequences of one's decisions for intragroup, intergroup, institutional relationships. In other words, you are going to give up your personal liberties for this group or that group, whatever the government is telling you to do. So here is your government, your state government in Virginia, your state government in North Carolina, telling you to give up your civil liberties, or telling your children to do that. Ann, it's pissing me
I know.
off.
I have a 6th grader. Okay, so I have been one of the ones that I learned. And I tell parents, because we have these nice little computers they send home. I started going through my daughter's Canvas, which is one of the ones that we'll talk about, because we don't have textbooks anymore.
Yeah.
So how long have we just been trusting? And then I started finding out RF chips are in these things. They tell them to track the computer. No, they're tracking your child. I started going through, and it takes time, parents. I'm telling you. one of the first assignments I found was during the opiate epidemic or the opioid module, asking my 11-year-old what prescription medications were in our house, to go online in Google that's in the Chromebook, find it, post an image, and then the link they found it.
So
And
ratting
I found out,
your own parents.
yes, that, and I, listen, this county will fight you on everything. They will never do it right by one single child. But as soon as I made that known, it was pulled out. Now, that was a county input assignment. That was not a teacher's assignment. That was put in by the county.
So exactly. So let's go over. Yes. And so we're going to get to data collection. So in fact, we're going to get to it right after this slide. Engaging in identity exploration, ding, 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 and coming to a resolution regarding one's own identity. That is not your damn job, government. That is not your damn job, Department of Public Instruction. That is not your job, teachers.
Child development is not malleable. Like, you can't.
Yeah. In other words, identity exploration. So what you just saw, you guys, those are slides to help a child, to guide a child, to groom a child, really, to their own identity exploration. Let's move on. Examining the importance of both personal and collective identities. Ding, ding, ding. Intersectionality. Again, that collective is, please give up your civil liberties without a fight. Okay. Oh, and by the way, also give up your family's traditions. Give up your family's everything. You shed that off and let the government choose one for you. This is what it is right here. Recognizing one's biases and deriving constructive meanings of social identities. These whack jobs think your gender, your biological sex is a social identity. They think that about your color and all kinds of stuff. Grounding and affirming. And anytime you hear affirming, run for the hills. Run for the hills, affirming, okay? Affirming of one's cultural heritage. I guarantee you, if you are white and Christian, or if you're white and Jewish, let me tell you something. There ain't going to be no affirming of your damn cultural heritage. Trust and believe when I say that. Recognize how everything is interconnected across diverse contexts. Okay, whatever. In other words, there's no such thing, children, as your family anymore. There are no borders or boundaries for you.
And that's empathy. Like, I've taught children are supposed to have boundaries of safety. And that's what is that you teach children that it's no longer okay if a boy or whoever is following you, stalking you.
Yeah.
You get in trouble for not being a good friend or not being inclusive so you're teaching a 7-year-old that they're not supposed to be alarmed if somebody is invading their personal space. And so the implications of that is what people don't realize is that you teach a 7-year-old that if somebody starts following you, you're not supposed to hurt their feelings.
Or the teacher, right? So look at this. You're going to see this. This is from our Department of Public Instruction. Okay. NCDPI, you see it right there. Trust and believe. I didn't create it. It's on the website. It may not be now because I take that stuff down every time I report, but use data for continuous improvement. This program relies upon applying copious data from children, data on themselves, data on what's in the medical cabinet, so they can tailor a program for that, right, Anne? Data on your parents, data on their siblings. This program seeks to turn children into spies, manipulatively, unknowingly.
Yeah. But that's the problem is that we have had questions that I have asked, do you have a supportive parental figure at home? You're asking an 11-year-old who may have fought with her mother, gotten into an argument, and is 11, who has no idea the context of it. And that's going into a data file. Okay. Correct. So she's going to check, no, I don't, because she's 11. Okay. Yes, I didn't start understanding why my daughter was coming home freaking out, talking about she needs a therapist. Now she thinks that she has generalized anxiety disorder. I said, no, she just turned 12 last week. You're a 6th grade girl. It's the worst year ever.
Yeah.
But because all they do is talk about emotions, they have created trauma. They have created anxiety, the suicide rate, because instead of having tantrums or acting like normal 11-year-olds, you've driven suicide into that's the norm. And they're absolutely coming home and challenging parents, and that's where it's coming from.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you want to talk about depression. Try being an 8th grader and not being able to read. That's depression.
Yes.
Okay. So let's pivot now to the Hunt Institute. This is really important. The Hunt Institute in premise is great, right? It seeks bipartisan consensus on educational topics. And look, we do need think tanks to consult with, not to rely upon. North Carolina is relying upon think tanks to decide policy and to get funding for it. Okay. And so that's what's happening. And they have this brilliantly done. They will invite, to give you an example, I just talked to a guy today, staunch conservative legislator, and they brought him in to this program that they've got, a lot of money they've got, this 6 weeks program, this fellows program. And they get Republicans and Democrats to come to it. And what they do is they actually break them down and get them to be consigning to getting funding for liberal policies. For instance, today, they spent a couple of hours in this group talking about, wow, we really need money for early pre-K, child education. And they give these sob stories, et cetera. And this is a staunch conservative now. And I'm like, they're paving the way to universal daycare, pre-K, universal pre-K. He's like, no. I said, and I'll show you. I promise you. So that's what they're doing. And then they're having these conservatives go to the legislature and beg for taxpayer dollars for the most left-wing shit you can ever imagine. That's what's happening here. So
I have had numerous conversations with not just school board members who signed on for these things because they believe what somebody told them. They did not do research. And I know many of our local legislators here in Virginia having the conversation with them about, they said, well, it's just social emotional learning. It's just you can't run on people running for office. I said, run hard on hard issues because nobody's going to understand it.
We can compromise on issues as conservatives, but never values.
Right.
Never values. Any law that's made, any program that's funding, the legislator, a conservative one, should always ask, does this extend the liberty of the citizen? Because if the government is doing something for someone, they can also do something to someone. This is big government gone crazy. Tell us, who's the CEO for Hunt Institute, please?
Javeed Siddiqui. Now, this is where I kind of think where you and I, because the Hunt Institute is in North Carolina. And I am a researcher, and I had to figure out where this county took a hard left in 2017. And that involved James Lane, who is now directly under Cardona. He miraculously left when Youngkin got no press release or anything, no notification that he was going from the VDOE to directly under Cardona, just miraculously appeared there in February. This man went from Goochland in the middle of nowhere to Chesterfield to the VDOE to Cardona in 8 years. Okay. Everything that he did at the VDOE, he did Chesterfield first. So Siddiqui, I was like, he's a Republican.
So wait a minute. So Siddiqui, let's back up. So I want you to follow along. So let's just stick with Siddiqui. He is the CEO of the Hunt Institute, I believe, for 2 years. Is that correct?
He has worked there. They never technically gave him a title. He's been there. He was on the school board from 2014 to 2018.
Okay. All right. So, but
he was at the Hunt Keen.
Okay.
He's been with the company.
Yep. Let's just stick with he's been the CEO for 2 years. Maybe he's done some affiliation, but let's back up and tell me, he was on the school board. This guy was a Republican school board member
He was Bob McDonnell, before Youngkin, the last Republican governor that we had. He was his Secretary of Education. He came back to Chesterfield, where he grew up. He was in the most affluent, not anymore, conservative Midlothian School Board District.
Okay.
And in 2017, he was on the Equity Committee that formed 50 pages of everything that you saw come out at Equity, all the stuff that came out of Virginia that has been, anti-racist, the stuff, how to be an anti-racist educator, white supremacy, like everything. That he was part of the development team with that. And that got me going. And so then I started looking it up, and he lost the Board of Supervisors and switched over in 2019 to Democrat.
Okay. So let's put a pin in that. So he changed. This is a Republican who was a school board member in Virginia. He became a Democrat, and then he goes on to lead the Hunt Institute. And listen, there are a lot of different policy shops and, bipartisan places. And that there's great value in that, because we've got to be able to agree again on issues, but not compromising value. But this guy is a complete far left nut. Let me show you what he wrote in The Hill recently. Critical race theory is a body of legal scholarship. So see, again, smokescreen. In other words, there's nothing to see here, folks, etc. And then he's very, very into transgender grooming. The guy he loves this stuff. He said, this is a couple of things he's written. This is recently in The Hill. Most recently, this is resulting in efforts to remove books from school libraries. The only books, Anne, are really the ones that show hardcore pornography. It's very bad. We would be if we encourage free thought and critical thinking, we should be filling our libraries with books that allow students with historically excluded identities to see themselves in the literature they read. In other words, don't you know, everyone, gay kids need to look at pornography. Forget teaching them math or English. Gay people, they like to look at sexual stuff. By the way, it's so insulting what he's saying right here. Representation is important, not in voice, but in creating spaces for brave conversations. In other words, the guy is a groomer.
Yeah.
Leading
There's no other word, and you can't dance around the fact that anybody that supports exposing children to sexually explicit material at an early age that will change them. I call it child murder, murder of innocence, because you have a small opportunity in life, this much, to be ignorant and not have to worry about, and that they are and now with this pre-K stuff, it's going to come sooner. So you're going to have children who never have that opportunity to
we're going to talk about that, because that is important, guys. We're going to talk about the universal pre-K. It's insane. But here's another thing that this guy wrote. This was recently. This was April 1st. I literally thought it was April Fool's, you guys. It's that absurd. Hold on. Can you see this? Let me see if I'm on or off. I'm just going to read part of this to you. Listen to this. Listen to this novel. He's talking about the removal of books that tell the stories of LGBTQ individuals. The books are so, incendiary. I can't show it without being scrapped from YouTube. I've done it, and it's happened. It's oral sex.
But they'll mute us when we read it to them at school board meetings. They'll mute us because it's obscene to be heard in a public meeting room of adults.
You can't. Yeah, our lieutenant governor tried to show it, and the same media outlets that are saying you're banning books, this is terrible, had to blur out the images. The point is that what he is saying, his argument is so stupid that, and you have to follow me because it's so illogical, that if you ban books that show hardcore porn drawings, because if you showed the real thing, you'd for reals be arrested.
But graphic novels may as well be.
If you ban those books then you're somehow a racist because you're getting in the way of Black and brown learning. Wires crossed. This guy, he's leading the Hunt Institute. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So let's just put it there. And so what the Hunt Institute does, again, it does a lot of things. So in North Carolina, as with Virginia, they'll do retreats. They will take, and I don't like this idea. I'll tell you why in a minute. They'll take, let's say 15 Democrats and 3 Republicans on a retreat somewhere and talk about policy the entire time. Well, of course, you know, it's kind of brainwashing. The reason why I don't like it is because policy discussions should come from constituents. They should involve constituents. It should not be, we're going to take you to some exclusive place and you're going to be programmed, right? 12 hours a day for 3 days. And you're going to come back, and they use conservative legislators to go lobby for the money for their sick projects.
I don't know how they need any more money, knowing seeing who funds them. It is
Who does fund?
Who doesn't is the question.
Well, give us the top 3.
Bezos, Gates, Chan Zuckerberg.
Okay. So these are the same organizations that want to censor parents. They want to censor everyone. And I mean, tech censorship is real, and it's real awful. And it's what's happening. You say the wrong thing about the pandemic, boom, you're cut off. So
yep.
What this guy from Hunt wants is to censor one voice and not the other. He's asking parents to shut up, but he's saying, oh, but you know, all of these LGBTQ books, put all of them in. I guarantee you try to put one in about President Donald Trump and how awesome he is, or the election being rigged, I promise you, it would never make it into the library.
We had a teacher, because they put white fragility and how to be anti-racist, and which is just, I mean, that's tame. But a Black gym teacher here who left because she refused to do it. She said, how about something about, you know, Blackout by Candace Owens, or something by Larry Elder? And they said they're not literary, they don't have literary value. That would be James River High School. And that's one of the worst here, but they refuse to even.
Okay. All right. Well, how about Thomas Sowell? How about Clarence Thomas? How about Roy Murdoch? How about, I could name
Dr. Ben Carson? Nope.
Okay. All right. So again, what we're talking about here is the shared wokeness that both Virginia has and in North Carolina. What we're exploring is the state-driven causes. One of them is the over-reliance on think tanks that present themselves as bipartisan when in fact they're not. Now, we have a guy on the board, a senator on the board here, Senator Mike Lee out of New Hanover. He's a state senator. He is chair of, he's one of the chairs of the boards. And I have to tell you, he's like the Liz Cheney, or the, who's the other fake Republican? What's the guy's name? Kinzinger. That's the type of Republican he is. Okay. So, yeah, this kind of Republican we actually don't need, right? So he's leading this. Now you and I talked about this today. We were absolutely amazed. You've got the Hunt Lee Commission. So let's stick to this Hunt Lee Commission, because I think viewers are going to get a lot out of this.
Real quick, I want to, just so when you guys see names, okay, you can go straight to the Hunt Institute. And this is, sometimes you have to hunt for, like, no pun intended, you have to look for partners or sponsors. But guess what? They're blatant about it, okay? Anytime that you see Carnegie is a big one. Who else?
Belk is huge.
Belk
is far left.
Robert Wood Johnson, but New Venture Fund, that's a Bill Gates fund. Anything by so this, it's like the worst of the, like, anybody that you can pretty much imagine that is at the top of the food chain that's who's going to be on here.
In other words, we're not the reason we're faulting the state here is because constituents matter. These are unelected elites that are trying to control public discourse. They're trying to control really everything. And now they're coming for our children, and Republicans are letting them do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. So these steps, these are the ones that we're finding very very problematic. So let me tell you who sat on this, guys, because you'll want to know this. Who signed off on this? Okay, I told you about Mike Lee, far left Republican, just exactly the kind we don't need. All right. Deanna Ballard sat on this. This is one reason why our PAC spent a lot of resources in getting her off of the board or off of the out of the Senate. And so she lost her primary last week to Ralph Hayes. Mark Robinson was on this commission. I hate to tell you, Mark Robinson.
For those that are from the Virginia squad, that would be like Winsome Sears.
It would be like
that would be like finding out Winsome Sears was a turncoat, is what she's telling you right now.
It is a real kick in the teeth. And I spoke with her office today, and will share what I learned a little bit. But it was basically like, you know, he knew what he signed off on. And then also John Hardister, who's a rep out of, I believe, Alamance, not real happy because the first priority, and by the way, they're using it, they got those Republicans, and they've got about 19 far leftists, the most far left people you can find. Oh, Catherine Truitt is another one, of course. So Catherine Truitt, Eric Davis, and Mark Robinson are 3 state school board members. This is a real serious problem here. It's red alert. Here's why. Number 1 goal, strengthen our data, information, and sharing. I'm going to take this off because you can't see very well. So what they're saying here is we need surveys, more surveys. Give us more data. And we want to put this, as you talked about, into a longitudinal data system to track human beings, individuals, from birth to death. Yes. And moreover, they want the money and the capability. They're not passing a law. They want the money.
That's right.
They're already be able to do it for systems to talk together. That means for as long as you live. By the way, this is social credit scoring. Here's how China does it. They call it the systems of systems, where HHS, the law enforcement, your health records, your educational records, they will talk across to each other.
Yep.
For the rest of your life, connected by your social security number and your facial ID.
And Tim Kaine has one in right now for the entire United States because he had long COVID, where he wants to because that COVID spread and it was so detrimental because all of the agencies were not interconnected.
And see, so at least in Virginia, you're going to wait for a law. In North Carolina, they're doing it now. The 4 Republicans are. Well, Deanna Ballard is gone. Mike Lee, who chaired this commission. Okay.
Tim Kaine is national Senate. So this is in the national.
I know that's going to be national. We're going to nationalize this. Mark Robinson and John Hardister. Okay. The rest, 15 far left whack jobs. Okay.
Well, Carrie Coyner, who is another one that was on the board with Siddiqui here, she was elected as a Republican, and she's the one that voted down every child parent protection bill. She was the deciding vote here in the House on the transgender to simply take the bathrooms part out. They didn't want to do anything. Everybody wants to villainize. They didn't even bother touching anything but the bathrooms, because I live in a county where it's co-ed bathrooms here.
So
data was her number 1 bill that she was proud that she got passed through as a Republican.
Matt's asking what Jamie Bowles did. I'm gathering that Jamie Bowles didn't fancy, Matt, you don't fancy him as a strong Republican. Well, Jamie Bowles lost his primary. But here's the whole horrible thing. Again, this was done outside the confines of constituents and other legislators. That's what makes me angry. This is a third party, and this commission is a third party, and these legislators have agreed to petition the General Assembly to get money for this. So a vote wasn't even taken, Matt. A vote wasn't even taken.
Yeah.
So this tracking and the surveys that parents have been talking about, et cetera, this will codify that in perpetuity because they're being done for this purpose. Tell us what you know about collecting health data and putting it in this bad boy.
Health data, it's beyond these screenings. And we talk about if you see anything that has to do with mental health, and this is where the money is, that and social workers coming into schools, home visits, which is on this list here, is that what they're doing with these assessments, a survey, they call it, because of protection of people's rights, they don't want to call it a survey. Their assessments is what they call them.
Oh, right.
So kindergarten through 8, using the DESA or DESA Mini, which is different companies do it. The teachers fill in bubbles, and it's now when you print out, if you look it up, what it does is that at age 5, it'll say whether your child is predetermined to have ADHD, bipolar, based on the answers of a 5-year-old, whether they can pay attention in class.
Teachers are doing it. So this data, that data goes into this system. This report, this Hunt-Lee report says, gee, guys, we're having a problem because the systems can't talk to each other. We need more data. Systems need to be able to talk to each other. That is a social credit score. You will get a social credit score on that. Yeah. That is this is red alert, because you are going to have Mark Robinson's office, John Hardister, Senator Mike Lee, if he wins. Who else did I say? Deanna Ballard's gone. But you're going to have them petitioning the General Assembly, and Mark Robinson has a lot of clout. So this is a red alert. We must not have that funded. We must not. Second thing that we saw in this report, and universal pre-K. That is a build back better bullshit. It's completely terrible. This is, again, government wanting to raise your child from cradle to grave. And it will bankrupt, that alone will bankrupt the state. Here's why. Because the feds are going to give money for a little while. But you can't ratchet down. You can only ratchet up. Believe me when I tell you, that will have strings attached. They are messing up royally K through 12 and doing this transgender stuff. If you think they're not going to start it and want to start it at 3, you're dead wrong.
It is absolutely, I call it educational welfare. We're going to give you don't get anything for free from the government without without strings attached to it. Second Step already has a pre-K program.
The Second Step is a
Committee for Children.
That's kind of like Castle Social Emotional Learning, correct?
Yeah, Castle would be the umbrella of, and then they approve programs. Panorama, Second Step, which is owned by Committee for Children, which is funded by Bill Gates. I mean, that's the nonprofit that owns the for-profit. So there's the trickle down. I just saw the comment about Panorama. Panorama they're the companies that give, like Aperture, Ascend, Panorama. They give the Devereaux assessments, and that's DESA Mini. So Panorama, it's all the symptom of the same disease, is that, so you have Castle. So when they want to complain about standardized learning, the only SEL in this nation is Castle SEL.
Yes.
Transformative SEL. So imagine is what I tell people, imagine an umbrella and putting every child and teaching them all the same morals, the
government, the ones that the government wants. So in other words, forget, and this is what you just said. This is the government saying, we're not families. We don't care what you want. We don't care about your culture, but we don't care about that. We're going to wipe the slate clean as early as we can, 3
Yes.
years old now, and we're going to inculcate the values that we want. Don't believe me? I'll show you the slides again right from the DPAB's website. That's right from the Virginia's website. Don't
Yes.
believe me? I'll show you the lessons again.
I tell everybody, I'm not that smart. I do enjoy researching. Go to type in Google VDOESEL right there on the page, Castle. You click resources, you're led to abolitionist SEL, how to use Castle SEL as a leverage for anti-racism. It's not hard to figure it out. And that's been my problem with the VDOE and Governor Youngkin, who I worked my butt off.
VDOE is. Can you tell
The
us
Virginia Department of Education.
Okay.
I assumed they were all like NCOD, you know, like,
Yeah.
but that would be.
So this is from Castle SEL. In other words, this is all social emotional learning. Read it for yourself. It can serve as a lever for equity, addressing issues such as power, privilege, prejudice, discrimination, social justice, empowerment, and self-determination. This complex work requires systems-wide alignment and continuous improvement, again, based on data collection.
But then the question is, who's interpreting the data, which is what I've asked before. Oh, a third party of an outside. Who? Because you can't tell me that this data came back without telling me who interpreted it. Because if you look up research-based, you can't use Castle as your basis for research on Castle's programs, which if you look at all this research for Second Step, their research is Castle or something from.
That was Common Core. That same thing you're describing made parents so mad during Common Core. But again, you know, here's where the Hunt Institute comes in, because if bipartisan people are supporting it, you know, they know it gives them more legitimacy. If they have Republicans go in, where there's a supermajority, which there will inevitably be come November here in the State House, having Republicans, especially Mark Robinson, would lend a lot of credibility. Look, I mean, again, they're giving, I mean, Hunt, they're well-funded, as you talked about, well-capitalized. They know what they're doing. They're having all these guys come in. I think this session, they have 10 Republicans and 20 Democrats come in. And they have all these sessions week after week after week. And at the end, you've got every level of government they've got city commissioners in there. They've got school board members asking for money for these things. And then North Carolina is wondering, wow, we have a ton of Republicans. We always elect the right people. What's happening?
We will have, and I have no doubt, we will have gone from an all blue state to an all red state come November. And I can guarantee is that this much will have changed. Because Governor Youngkin issued his divisive concepts, and then I challenged the VDOE, then Castle has to come down. It has to, because you can't take equity away, and you can't, and now they've ignored. We have a jot form going that people fill out and send it. They get so sick of seeing this come through. But and now he just issued the state of our education in Virginia. Well, you know what? If you remove school climate, because the Virginia Dems say it's not, when you remove school climate as being a factor of education and you only look at academics, we are failing.
So tell us what school climate means.
School climate is how welcoming and inclusive you are to Black, Brown, and Latinx. If your microaggressions, if your implicit biases, if all of that stuff, that is climate. It's how well you can train people to just basically sit there and be robots because they have no idea what. I don't have microaggressions. Yes, you do, because you don't have them. You have them even worse. Like, to teach that to adults is one thing, but to do that to children, like, you can go to the VDOE SEL and they have slides, and it'll say bias. but and it's in cartoons. These are K-4 flashcards, and
Wow.
it'll have
Well,
all. It'll have
you just saw, yeah. So you just saw that social emotional learning is learning about biases, etc. So what you're saying is you're seeing the lessons that comport exactly with what they said that they were going to comport with. This is insane.
But it's like, people here all over Virginia have seen. My daughter was told she read the book The Giver, but before every question, there was 4 to 6 questions about my child, about her family affiliations, what kind of, and some of them were like, how does how you dress make people think about you? Or but school climate, it was, have you ever thought something? She was 11. Have you ever looked at somebody and thought something about them without really knowing them? And so can you imagine, like, what are you like? Ask a question about the damn book you assigned is what I told her teacher. And so at that point, I went in full force and had her removed, which I will gladly tell everybody how to do, but you have to stay on top of it, because for the second you look away from your kid's Chromebook, happened to me. I looked away for a week. They were asking 3 weeks ago if my child was non-binary, an 11-year-old. In a life skills is another one that you need to look up. If you see the word life skills in anything having to do with your child's stuff, that's one of those things you need to make sure that you look at.
So I'm seeing some chatter here. So David Hensley about what? So David Hensley happens to be a Republican school board member. Yeah, okay, I got it. So, again, Republicans, school board members are finally understanding because they've been lied to as well. And this hasn't really been fair to school boards because, school board members, a lot of them are saying, hey, we don't want social emotional learning, etc. We're not going to have it. And then they don't know that the state is mandating. Right. So let me show you how they're teaching, just because we're on the subject. Here's how they're teaching teachers. And it's absolutely, it's unbelievable. I don't think you can see this very well, but they're teaching them about microaggressions. Mm-hmm. They start this meeting, y'all. This is insanity, with land acknowledgements. Do you know what that is? In other words, we're on stolen land. America sucks. We're terrible. Yeah. Starting that. Norms for equity conversations. Terminology. Ding, ding. Biases and microaggressions. So this, if you think that they're just training the teachers for this and they don't expect the teachers to bring it into the classroom no matter what grade they're teaching, you're wrong. So Matt is saying, cut it. Why don't you cut into the schools? And this is a great thing to say and to try. Cut into the schools enrollment. Everybody pull your kids out. Here's the problem. Republicans also in the legislature decided that they were going to keep funding the schools from the state the same amount of funding, even though they have lost children.
Yeah.
So they're being, in essence, rewarded for this bad behavior. And even though schools, Eric, are getting fewer students, they're still claiming to be underfunded.
Yes. They're freaking out about, I think, Deb pulled, and I don't even know how many, Charlotte got, but she said, is that million? Like, that was just ARP. And this is money.
So let's slow down and tell people where. So there is a government grant called American Rescue Plan. That's one. And then there's ESSER. Every student succeeds. Okay. So what happens is the state, and really here the Department of Public Instruction, they say, hey, we're going to put in psychiatrists in every school, this, that, and the other, blah, blah. And when that federal funding runs out, taxpayers are going to be on the hook for it.
Yeah, they're freaking out. They're saying, what are we going to do when we don't have this money anymore? Well, you had it. You didn't have it before. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. you can stick it away, because I know that Chesterfield County is very proud that they're fully funded for the next 2 years. They won't pay the teachers because there were stipulations on the money. The teachers, like the VEA, who is the NEA mini, there were stipulations. Miguel Cardona did not want to bring in or to give bonuses to the teachers because he wants to retrain all teachers to be culturally competent, anti-racist educators.
They're doing that here in North Carolina.
That was every state that took the money had the same direct stipulations. You cannot use it to give teachers raises. I told the CEA, call Becky Pringle, who makes $660,000, and you ask her, because I have the videos with her and Weingarten where Cardona said, I want your fingerprints all over this as they were writing the money. They were proud of it.
So let's tell everybody who that is. Cardona is the new Betsy DeVos, right? He's the new head of the Department of Education. And then the other girl, he said Becky Pringle. That's the National Education. Okay, so that's the union boss. Really,
and everybody knows Weingarten of the AFP.
Not a nice person. All right, so you can stick it before I pull my kids. Superintendent said they still haven't even spent the money. No, they haven't spent the money. I think in North Carolina, maybe 8%, 9% is spent. And so, but they keep.
It has to be allocated by 2024.
Well, they keep asking for more money. And so how do we deal with this? So it's not complicated. Eric, you're always on here asking for a quick fix. It's not a quick fix. First, you have to learn about the information, and it's a lot of information to learn. So we teach first. That's the primary thing, right? You've got to learn what the hell is going on, because a lot of this, we do this all day, every day, right, Ann? I mean,
I've done it in 5 months. 5 months ago, I was a happy-go-lucky, I'm going to go speak to the school board because I'm so educated and logical that they're going to not mask or make co-ed bathrooms a thing, because who does that? And then when they did, I was like, So trust me, in 5 months, when I say that Virginia messed with the wrong mom, I meant it. And I'm pulling my kids, and because I pay taxes here, and I believe it, they want to say that we want to shut public schools down. No, we actually want to save it. And that's why we're fighting for it. Can it be? Maybe by my grandchildren. I don't know. But I'm certainly not going to go down without a fight, because when I say saving these children is saving America, I'm not being overly dramatic, because we're teetering on the destruction of America right now. Like,
right. So Tanya, you brought up a very good thing. You're exactly over the target here. Here's how it works in North Carolina. I'm sure it's generalizable to other states. If a school board says we do not want to teach social emotional learning, okay, but you're going to lose 30% of your funding from the state.
They've been told they'll be sued. This was masking. They voted to mask our kids because they were told that they would be sued. They were told that they would lose the funding. Same thing with transgender. Right now in Virginia, it's legislation, and this is what we're trying to get the Virginia Department of Education and Governor Youngkin to move on. The legislation says there has to be social emotional learning. Does not say it has to be CASEL. And this is where Jason Littlefield, he's helping me.
Yes. Okay.
Because
there's a lot. Okay. So let's stop right here. Okay. So what you're saying, what we need first, here's our recommendation. Here's what we're pushing for. Number one, an audit. We need a full audit for the last 2 years of spending. This is how you don't even know what's going on until you get an audit. We want to know everything. And that's how you sell it to the public. Because look, every dollar that goes for transgender grooming is $1 less we can pay for good teachers. That's a fact. You're taking money directly from the classroom. That's just the way that it is. So we've got to get an audit first and find out what's going on. Explain the 30%, Nancy. I can't explain 30%. That's what it is. Again, how am I going to explain a 30% withholding of the funds if I don't have an audit and I don't know? It could be arbitrary for all I know. That's That's the problem, Matt.
There's a certain percent that the state, the SEA, the state education association, withheld from each local. Why? They call it a safety net is what they call it. But
a grant or whatever they call it. So Matt, you're exactly right. Moms are the reason that Bowles is a longtime legislator. He lost his race to another guy. And moms are the reason that Ralph Heiss won. And moms are the reason that Norm Sanderson won. And moms are the reason why Brian Escovario won. I'm telling you, this movement, again, ignore it at your own peril.
I call it ostrich. You can be an ostrich mom all you
Yeah.
want. But you're going to answer to your child or wonder what happened to your child.
Nancy, yeah. I mean, we want the Department of Public Instruction audited. And everybody that we have talked to in the legislature has agreed to do that. And everyone that we are backing. We don't back you unless you're calling for an audit. We want an audit of the Department of Public Instruction. They're getting lottery money. They're getting money from the feds. They are a cash register. 58% of our state funding, 58%. goes to the DPI. And I'm telling you, they're up there getting paid $125,000 a year, not even in a classroom. I want to know what the hell they're doing while our teachers are barely scraping by. And that isn't fair.
No.
But again, every dollar that goes to covering these equity trainings for teachers that cover all of this social emotional learning training is $1 out of their pocket.
Yeah. But what lights me up is that people, they got IDEA for these special education kids. I don't know about North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
But our SPED kids, if you want to talk about historically marginalized.
They're using that for
SEL.
Yeah.
There are companies like Committee for Children and Second Step put out literal matrices on how to misappropriate the fund, IDEA, every grant that has ever been put out, how to use it for SEL.
So IDEA grant, okay, that is from the feds, used for special needs children. In North Carolina, $7 million went to teaching preschoolers, disabled preschoolers, how to decenter their whiteness. Now, if you think that we're going to sit back and let anyone, I don't care who they are, push for universal pre-K, you're out of your mind. Without a fight, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. It's already mismanaged. So it's like, I've been an entrepreneur pretty much all my life. And what happens is when someone wants to invest in your business, here's how it works. They do due diligence, but they want to know from an outside firm, okay, what are they spending money on? What are their expenses? Who's at their cap table? What's going on here? Before we're going to put millions in to the DPI and give them their money, we need to see what's under the hood. What are they spending money on? What are they wasting money on? Because I guarantee you, they don't need half the money they're asking for. They're lighting money on fire, Ann.
Now the CARES money, which was the ESSER 1, which was what Trump did, that was this much money for actual cleaning the buildings, the HVAC systems. They had to spend it or they'd lose it. And so they bought $500,000 touchless water stations. They could have spent it on other stuff, and that's where you see all this AstroTurf talking, is that they're just going to light it on fire.
Tanya, wait, is this Pitt County, North Carolina? Canceling Mother and Father's Day, that is the government, right, wanting to destroy okay, Tanya, I'm going to come up there in Pitt County and straighten people out. I'm going to leave after this show. I'll see you in an hour and a half. I'm just kidding. But I am coming there to straighten things out.
I'll come down there because
it's insane.
They March was not Women's Month in our county. It was Equity Month because of the VSB, the Virginia State Board.
So let me tell you what transgenderism does. It seeks to knock off women and gay people. Here's why. Obviously, we don't even deserve our own girls or our own placard anymore on the outside of the bathroom door, right? In sports, bathroom gone. But transgenderism teaches gay people that, well, you're a gay man, then be a woman, right? You can be a woman too.
Feminizing men and getting rid of women.
It's okay to be a gay man. It's okay to be a gay woman. You don't need to change your gender for that. This is all insanity. It's all insane. But getting back to the issue and summing it all up and finishing it out, we've got two border states very involved with the Hunt Institute. It's bipartisan, and there's a good deal of value in sharing ideas, never compromising your values, right? And that's what they're doing. And they wear these Republicans down, and they get them to go out and fundraise for these programs like social emotional learning, which is a pariah on our children and on our families.
Real quick, and if you think that they're not going to have a play, I forgot to scroll down into their partners, not their sponsors. So you've got, let's see. Oh, the National Association of Elementary School Principals. You've got the NSBA, the National School Board Association, the National Association of Secondary School Principals. So these, okay, so that is, you've got all the Chiefs for Change, Council of Chief State School Officials, the American School Superintendent Association. Okay, so you have to understand that these are the people at the top of the national food chain that should be looking out for our children that are partnered with the Hunt Institute.
Absolutely.
So I forgot to scroll down that right there you have so is it just a North Carolina problem? No, trust me, it's not, because we thought Jane Lane was just a
definitely not
Virginia problem. No, now he's a national problem.
So we had a DPI official on here a little while ago asking some questions. They had a pseudonym, but I want to address this. And the question they asked was, is the DPI getting money via grants, taxpayer dollars, etc.? Here's what I want to tell you, smarty pants. Who do you think funds grants? Who do you think funds federal grants?
Exactly. Philanthropists.
It's the taxpayer. No. Well, that's one. But it's the taxpayer. So IDEA is a federal grant, right? So let's talk about this. So the grants that you're getting and the 58% of state spending, okay, that's taxpayer dollars, period. The other ones, which you just alluded to, is a special interest grant, which in and of itself is problematic because it takes the power out of the citizenry and puts it in
the Iron Triangle.
That's right. And that is Gates, that is Bezos, that is Chan Zuckerberg, that is. So either way, smarty pants, okay, I don't care. It either comes from the taxpayer, all right, or it comes from special interest. And I want to tell you this. The DPI has very little oversight. That's going to change. The DPI has very little oversight, and they're basically unelected bureaucrats led by a woman who says, I can't do anything, which is a superintendent, right?
Are you guys appointed also?
No.
A full board?
No, she's elected, and she most certainly does have power. So this is not accurate. And so, the funding comes in that way. And then we're going to show, the audit will show that schools are being built, for instance, where they don't need to be built. And we're investigating that. They're being paid 3 times the amount they actually need, and no oversight is happening. So
they put a new facade of which facade do you want on this existing elementary school? My answer was this evergreen elementary that has 30 plus kids packed in 9 in this there. And I said, how about you take your facade and you go, oh, I'm sorry, is that neighborhood not affluent enough for you? Because they certainly do make them pop up. But instead, they built a new facade, which is for a school that operates fine, but it might be ugly on the outside.
Well, absolutely. Look, a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse is going on. And listen, my DPI friends, let me tell you what we already know. We already know that you are paying, your hiring is insane. Mark Johnson, the superintendent, before you cut the amount of staff, you're wanting to blow that out, bloat it. You're obviously, not concerned about the budget at all. And another thing, you're paying your employees, staff, you're paying them more than is actually on the pay schedule. You are telling people to do things in certain departments they're not comfortable with doing. One of those is paying people much more than they're allowed to be paid. That's what you're doing. So smarty pants. Another thing you're doing is wasting taxpayer dollars on people who are not in the classroom. They don't deserve it. They don't need it. Your department needs to either be cut down to 50% or completely eliminated. And there are a lot of legislators who want to do just that. Anne, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're really hammering this stuff out. The state level is making a lot of decisions. It's leaving the constituents out of the loop, relying on people like the Hunt Center. Very attractive concept, but bad work product comes out of it. And we, the taxpayers, stuck with it. And our children are suffering under it.
Yes, they are.
All right. Well, have a good evening, guys. And again, thank you. I look forward to working with you as always in the future.
Yes, we will do something